was New York City in 1968. It was very easy to find men that had dark roots. Very easy. And so...
All right, so just tell me a little bit about this image. Who are these folks?
Well, I'm calling her Joan of Arc. And I think that there were some political posters about the city. 1968 is a long time ago, and if I could visualize, I would love to. But obviously, I think we're in Washington Square here, real people, real family, an old boyfriend that I happened to shoot leaning against this wall that carries all the way through so that this merged. It's old school magic. Old school magic. And finding these images to double expose onto the reality has me so mystified too. It's wandering the city, wandering in a gallery, wandering in a museum, shooting something, shooting it again. I would back up, I would shoot, then back up, then shoot. So that sometimes, because I just wanted another image overlaid on whatever was the first one. And because you can't see them.
You can't see them, you haven't
can't
developed
see
it yet.
them.
Yeah, so it's just
and it's just the
hope.
excitement of the darkroom.
Oh, that's great.
That to see them, and they've been hidden away for a long time. If you're trying to do this in Photoshop, that the overlaying doesn't give you the freedom to pull images like this and see what would happen, because I had to underexpose as I was doing it. And I don't know enough about Photoshop. I'm still so old school. Everything you see in the show is full frame because I'm thinking that I just spent $1.25 on a roll of film, and that was more than dinner cost in 1968, and that I wasn't going to take retakes the way you're taught initially, is to bracket everything. No, I can't. I'm going to get it right the first time.
That's good.
I'm going to get it right. And so I do that with my digital eye. I don't have multiple images. I shoot once, and there it is.
There it is.
Then but if I were buying one of my photos, I would want this one, the Volkswagen and the agave. They just spelled out Mexico and the countryside outside of Mexico City.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
That classic old Volkswagen. I always think of it as the car of Mexico, not Germany.
I mean, I want to know what the whole purpose of this. Why did you carry this chair around on this trip?
Well, I brought this little red chair with me, and I'd been to Mexico City and other parts of Mexico many times, and I've taken many photos. And this trip, I wanted a reason to engage with people, with the landscape, and have an element that defined something that was important to me. And I have a huge collection of little chairs. And a little red chair that looked like it was made in a little plastic carpenter shop. Unfortunately, over the course of the journey, it lost its little feet. You can see the little round ball feet. One would disappear and another one would disappear, and now it's footless.
And why the decorative mats?
I've always loved the oilcloth you can buy in the markets in Mexico. There's something there, it spells a party. It spells cold beer on the beach. And these photos were like one big long party.
You said it was an opportunity to engage with the people. So you'd offer this chair to these kids and say, "Can I take your picture with this?"
And then I would, with the kids sometimes they thought it was a gift and it was sad, and luckily I had candy and other little toys to make the exchange, because that's kind of disturbing to be able to hold something and not understand why, but I had better prizes for them. It's so funny because the dogs look like I had just flip imaged it, but it was two dogs that pretty much looked exactly alike, sleeping soundly, put the chair down, did not disturb them. The miracle of taking photographs is just that have your eyes peeled at all times and there's something wonderful happening everywhere.
Even on this water heater.
Yeah.
Where was that?
That was in my hotel in Mexico City, and they don't feel it necessary to cover a water heater, proving that they have a lot of hot water, and they decorated with the woven tapestries. And I've been collecting those forever.
These tapestries?
These type of tapestries, yes. I have them, actually have bins of them arranged by animal. And then, of course, there's the whole bin with the Last Supper.
I want to see that.
Uh-huh.
Well,
and so, to have that as art in my hotel room, it's like, I couldn't have asked for better.
yeah, it was. You're at home.
You know.
You're home away from home.
Exactly.
Did you then come home and uncover your own water heater, bring it out of the closet?
It stayed in the closet. But it's actually in the closet with all the bins of the Italian tapestries.
It's really interesting that how this chair, knowing its size, really does give scale to every one of these photographs, because sometimes it's hard to tell scale in a photo.
Exactly.
Particularly this, that's a really simple image.
And that's the little red chair on the steps of the pyramids at Teotihuacan.
What I really like about this is how you've managed to mix up the people. That it's your organization is headshot, group shot, not where they come from.
Right, right. That was the plan when I was attempting to curate the millions of photos I have of people. I'm really comfortable trying to communicate with people. And I'm short, so I'm non-threatening, and I smile a lot, and I make them smile. It's so delightful.
So you talk to these people, and
I talk to them, of course.
And did you stage like the nonas and the?
Oh, no. They were just sitting, and as you can tell by the expressions on their faces, they were chastising me, as if I shouldn't be wandering the back alleyways of Naples with my big Nikon. It's taken quite a while ago in Naples, and then I call them the nonas. And then sitting next is the nonos. And I just took that in October when I was in southern Italy, in the mountains, in a great town called Matera. It's the town of caves. And all the gentlemen had been kicked out of the house by their wives. I Sure, and I used every bit of Italian I could muster to talk to them, and they were so happy. And eventually they squeezed over so I would sit with them.
The difference, are some of these taken with a digital camera and others are film?
These were all shot with digital. My very early first Nikon, I think it was one of the first Nikons that I got when Christo hung the gates in Central Park.
So when you went to hang this show, I mean, this is all stuff, 50 years of stuff.
It is.
How did you select what you were going to put in the show?
I started with the transparencies that are behind, and I have hundreds of them. And
so there were slides?
We set up a slide projector. They were Ektachrome slide film, and I had read a very short article somewhere about taking Ektachrome film and making colors pop by developing them in C22 negative chemistry. And I did it, and it worked. In a way, it was that same miracle that happened with the double exposures. The power of using the chemistry that was involved in the old days. And I used this process from around 1976 through about 82. And I was doing it all over the world, wherever I was traveling at that time. And then Kodak changed the chemistry, and I could no longer get these beautiful colors. And luckily, I shot a lot of them, and I honed them down to about 70. Then I honed them down to about 30 and invited friends over to take votes on what were their favorites. Because it was always my dream to be able to have them in light boxes that would be like a projector on a screen, but always there, always glowing, several in a slideshow. For example, this one right here was from a slideshow called Tits and Friends of Tits. And my girlfriend Pat, that was here, volunteered her body and her groceries to create that slide.
But was there one that got more votes than the others?
As you can see, the Polish students there was the first red dot to go up during the opening, because it's such a confusing, intriguing image, because there it is, the Polish student scientific expedition, Bari, 1979, on the bus, parked right there in front of the Colosseum before all the fences and grates and scaffolding went up around antiquities in Rome.
All right, so this is a project, this idea of adding light to these images it's a project you took on now. This is like 30 years ago now, 35 years ago.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. So this
More than that.
Yeah, so this is before digital, before we're all staring at screens. You thought it'd be a good idea to have us, get used to staring at screens. Because I mean, this is way more what a computer image looks like than these.
Exactly. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I've always loved to do slideshows. And whenever I would come back from travels, I would put slideshows together and we'd have a little travel party, you know, and it wasn't like, do you want to see my home movies type thing. People were fighting to get a seat on the couch for Donna's slideshows.
That's good. They weren't falling asleep.
And so I was pulling from quite a few different slideshows to put this together. That's the front of a bar somewhere in New Mexico. And if you look at it closely, you can see mountain scenery drawn on the back. Some people have said, do you think it was a church? But considering it was the late 70s, and that mustache, it looked like could have been a New Mexico disco at night. The beer bottles were in probably in Puerto Vallarta, where I shot that one, part of that slideshow, and it looks like a painting. I think that could be one of my favorites, the way it glows, and the realistic bottles with the abstract of the background. This was just wandering around old Denver.
Meets.
And when I first met Mike, I lived in Boulder, he lived in Denver, and I'd come down with my camera, and that's what we did. Because that's what you do in New York City. You wander the streets, and that's what I wanted to do in Denver. And I think we've photographed so much of what is gone now. And that was somewhere off of Colfax, I would imagine. And almost an opposite, but at the same time, if you printed a negative, you don't get the richness of the colors, but because this was transparency film, which is one of the most alive of the color film, and then develop it as a negative in the appropriate chemistry, it retains the original colors, not turned completely on a color scale, but partially. This probably would be a very interesting picture in itself, because it's pretty confusing, but how did that car get up on the top of the shack and this beautifully painted cactus? But with these colors, it becomes an impression of what it is.
So you use the word confusing often. And I think you don't mean it in a negative term.
It's a really positive, because when people first look at these, they look perplexed. Like, what is going on here? And I think that's probably why I use the word confusing.
What do you think it adds to the work?
I think it adds a lot. You see the whole picture. You don't focus in on one thing. You see the whole picture, because everything takes on a certain different meaning than you normally.
Do you think that confusion works with your regular work as well? When you add, like, there's a lot of layers in these.
Yes, these are some very recent ones on this wall. All done in Rome.
A couple of years ago?
October. Just this
October.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I knew prior to leaving for Italy that I had been asked to do this show for a month of photography. So half the time when you look into a glass window in a storefront, you're in the picture. But I worked to make sure that there was no reflections of me in any of them. And there's been a lot of votes for the Coliseum poster that is right up there because people are confused again. There's that word, confused, like what is it? We don't understand. What is she?
Well, and the Colosseum particularly, there's a front surface, and then there's the Colosseum is in the background.
No, it was just a poster, a tourist poster on a wall. And there's all the scratches. It had aged and patinaed.
Which is why it's all one color. This is, of course, really obvious, but the reflection is just adds mystery.
It does.
It's just that little air of mystery, and then the jail bars are pretty nice too.
Around Mona, that's what I call her, and driving around one of the islands in Croatia, and some farmer had covered all his hay to keep it dry with this huge canvas tarp.
That had this image printed on it?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Talk about finding the right place at the right time and taking back roads and convincing my husband that stop the car.
Well, have things changed in the 50 years that you've been taking photographs?
Have things changed?
Has your work changed? Has your process changed, do you think?
Well, I'm kind of contemplating learning more of the modern technology that's going on. And then at the same time,
just contemplating.
At the same time, you know, I'm on the board of Colorado Photographic Arts, and we have access to a darkroom, and I went and visited Prosthesis yesterday. And Vivian and Chris have created an incredible space with a really beautiful darkroom. So I'm actually either thinking of going to outer space or back to a cave.
That's great.